Look, we're back. Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, October 3rd, excuse me, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. It's Thursday, so you know what that means. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter coming up. We're going to dive deep on Cruton. We've got some tremendous video from this past weekend of future and possible future Buckeyes from the state. We're going to talk about some other interesting recruiting content around the wheel and who's coming in town for the Iowa game this weekend. But first, this episode is brought to you by you-know-who, Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle grooming and grooming. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Now, what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience it? Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision and style every time. Head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code BUCKNUTS for 20% off plus free shipping. All right, look who it is. The Dean, the Grand Poobah are here. Big weekend coming. It seems like every week now Ohio State is amping up the quality of play on the field. I think it's fair to assume that Iowa will be a stiffer test than Michigan State. And likewise, Ohio State will have a few guys in the shoe to check it out. Night game makes it a little more easy. 3:30 kickoff makes it a little easier for them to get there. William, if you were in charge of refreshments on the red carpet, who would you go to first this weekend?
Well, it's a pretty good list. I don't know if I would have any, maybe one A, B, and C almost, maybe even a D in there. Good morning, Deetra. But with Ohio State's needs on the offensive line, I think I have to start on the offensive line. Max Riley from up in Northeast Ohio, who is currently and maybe for the rest of the time, the number one player in the state of Ohio in the 247 Sports rankings of players. So Max Riley will be there, and then Will Conroy, the offensive lineman from St. Ignatius, and Adam Guthrie, who is an offer candidate, I believe. Those three offensive linemen are confirmed. They are planning to be at the shoe this weekend. Riley had told me for a long time he was going to be at the Iowa or Nebraska game, and who knows, maybe we can get him at both games, but he's coming to the Iowa game. I got to jump to the class of 2027 then, because quarterback in Ryan Day's offense, it's really in anybody's offense for the most part, most important position on the field. Brady Edmonds, 2027, is going to be at the game, and he'll be at Ohio State Saturday and Sunday both. So he's going to be in Columbus the weekend. That's a great thing. So those guys are all priority. Jameer Brown, staying with the class of 2027, the speedster from Huber Heights, Wayne. He is the number one wide receiver in the country for the class of 2027. He will be at the game on Saturday, so that's another big one. Again, trying to hit on the big ones right now. Interesting, Dorian Barney, Alabama defensive back commitment, is planning to be at the game. I am not expecting a flip, at least not right now or not anytime soon, but he is planning to be at the game, so that's huge. Again, kind of hitting big guys, or at least guys that Ohio State has offered a scholarship. You got a linebacker, Zach Weeks from Georgia, planning to be at the game. Ohio State has offered him. And when our family did our vacation at the beginning of August, we went to Lake Oconee in Georgia. Well, that is where Zach Weeks is from, Lake Oconee, Georgia. And if you haven't been there, it is a beautiful, beautiful lake. And Ben Roethlisberger has a house on that lake as a matter of fact. A little bit of trivia for you there. But if you see the houses on that lake, you could see that Ben Roethlisberger would want to have a house on that lake. So
what is he like as a neighbor, Bill, when you have a big house on the lake like that? What's that like to be neighbors with Ben Roethlisberger? Do you enjoy that? You guys share a dock or anything?
I would not know that, but here's another little trivia question. Kirk Herbstreit and I were pretty much neighbors back in the day. We both lived. We lived in a community that half of it is in the Olentangy Liberty School District, and half of the community is in the Dublin School District. And Kirk, and at that time, he had two little twin boys. They were probably about, 2-3 years old, maybe at that point, maybe a little older. And he was at 1460 The Fan then, and he would drive by our house and he would wave as he went by as I was playing with my kids in the front yard. So just another little trivia item for those that like trivia. I should mention another linebacker, though, getting back to the Iowa game visitors. Ellis McGaskin, he is from Alabama. He is a 2027 linebacker that Ohio State has offered a scholarship. He is planning to be at the game this weekend. And a couple kids that I think are interesting. Caden Gebhardt, a safety from right up the road here, Olentangy High School, Lewis Center, Olentangy High School. He, I think, is an offer candidate for Ohio State. I like him a lot. He's a class of 2026 safety. And then another guy we've talked about some. I know Mark has talked about seeing him. Sean Alston, the running back from up in Paynesville, class of 2026. He is planning to be at the game. So, that's kind of a quick look hitting on some of the guys that Ohio State has offered or I think may get an offer at some point from the Buckeyes.
Mark, he brings up Sean Alston, and we got a question from Ross Halford here. Will Sean Alston end up with an OSU offer? Your thoughts on that, and then maybe the other names that jumped out to you of the guys Bill mentioned.
Caden Gebhardt was one of my options to go see this week play from Olentangy. Bill just talked about him. Alston, I saw a lot last week play Conneaut, and we had a clip of him for a long touchdown run. He actually had a couple touchdown runs in that game. To be honest with everybody, Conneaut was such a different level of competition that I couldn't judge exactly how good he was in that game. And if he would have been playing a Glenville or someone like that and did what he did, I'd have said, yeah, he's an offer candidate right away. He's probably still an offer candidate. I think it might go into camp season for him. He's going to have a highlight film that is unbelievable. One of those films where you do a double take. But I think because he does it against competition that isn't exactly going to college, a lot of ththose kids, he may have to legitimize it at camp. But he's got a great body. I liked his lower body and the thickness. I like how he holds his weight. He was so good. I don't know if it's real or not. If that's probably one of the most honest answers I can give you. So we'll keep an eye on him. It's funny when you go scout a kid in a condition like that. I was hoping to come away with a yes or no, but all it did was confuse me a little more. But error on the side of candidate to be offered.
Okay. Let's.
Dan, I want to go back real quick.
Okay.
Two things I didn't mention from the Iowa game coming up Saturday. An interesting guy that I think is, well, at least I think it's interesting that's visiting is Dominic DeFreitas. He is a kicker from Indiana, and he is a 2025 guy. Hadn't been offered a scholarship by Ohio State at this point, but with kind of this kicking issues that Ohio State's had a little bit of this season, a 2025 kicker coming to Ohio Stadium, I think it is an interesting guy to think about. And the other thing is very impressive list of commitments visiting Ohio State this weekend. I think I've already got 11 or a dozen Ohio State commitments that are going to be in the shoe on Saturday for this game, including Devin Sanchez and his family. So I think that's kind of interesting. They've done a really good job of getting their commitments to come to this game, including Zion Grady from Alabama and Riley Pettijohn, also from Texas, like the Sanchez's, and of course Tavian St. Clair's at every game. So they've just done a really good job of getting the commitments to come to this game.
Very interesting. Zion Grady's high school team takes on Malik Autry's high school team either this Friday or next Friday, Bill. I can't remember which one.
Yeah,
I think it might be next Friday.
I think it might be this Friday, but I'm not positive on that. I have to look at that. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting game.
I have an operative who will be at that game for us and will report back. So I'm looking forward to that. I can't remember if it's this Friday or the next one, but we will definitely have a report on that. And Zion Grady is an Alabaman who's not in danger of flipping. Let's just talk about it that way. That guy has had a good senior year, and we are psyched to have him be part of the group. All right, Bill, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, last show, so I wanted to, and it's going to come up. So this is regarding Naeem Offord and the transitive theory of other people transferring around and how that will affect him. When I saw that Deuce Knight, the quarterback, made the somewhat expected move from Notre Dame to Auburn recently, it did hammer home to me, though, that Auburn is having a better year than Notre Dame. So our hope that the Auburn demise, as it were, will affect Naeem Offord, I'm starting to not really believe that that may be the case, because it may end up just being a financial deal. What would you make of my assessment of the situation?
Well, quite a while back in one of my articles, my What I Am Hearing article, I mentioned that keep an eye on Deuce Knight, that is related at least a little bit to Offord, Naeem Offord. You know, Naeem Offord wants to be in a class with a really good quarterback. If he goes to Ohio State, he's in that class. He's got Tavian St. Clair. But he has been watching the possibility of Deuce Knight flipping to give Auburn a really good quarterback. So I'm not saying that that's going to make him flip to Auburn, but I did mention quite a long time ago that keep an eye on that, because he's keeping an eye on that. And sure enough, yesterday, as you mentioned, Dan, as expected, Knight announced that he had flipped, that he is committed now to Auburn. And bring up, you've talked about the point that while Auburn may be having a not so great season, and some people say even that it's a bit of a dumpster fire and everything else, when you've got NIL and different things that you can do, you can still get great players. And Offord is recruiting very well. So, it's something to keep an eye on.
That could be a Deanism going forward. It's a bit of a dumpster fire. Bill's a very nice human being and doesn't want to say dumpster fire, so he says bit of a dumpster fire. Anyone that's been near a dumpster fire knows that just a bit of a dumpster fire is also not good. But that is the Dean for you. So everything with rounded edges, and we love it.
By the way, if you look at the rankings right now, you've got in the 247 Sports rankings. I know you've looked at them, Dan, but all of our people on this podcast haven't all looked at them. Ohio State #1 in class in the country right now. Alabama #2 class in the country right now. We've given our props to Kalen DeBoer, and as you know, Dan, Auburn is now #3 in the country in the rankings. That's a 2025 class.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Bill, because I probably should have mentioned that. That also led me to this train of thinking, in that if you look at the rankings of the recruiting, it's pretty much all the teams now who are in contention for a title and Auburn. So, Naeem, we're talking to you. Make your call there, bro. Okay, I'm going to read. I'm going to read the next ad, and then we're going to get into some really good stuff here. But Pat Murphy would just not be happy with me if I did not get this ad out on time and get him thinking about what needs to be done. Because
does Pat know we mention him every time we read this article?
Listen, Pat, basically an employee at Joy Mode now. And then I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex. Good Lord. And for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue, over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we've partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. Their trademark product, the Sexual Performance Booster, is every man's solution for increased flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. It's like a pre-workout, but for sex. Redefine your intimacy and go to tryjoymode.com. That's tryjoymode.com for 20% off with code Bucknuts. 20% off and free shipping with the code Bucknuts at tryjoymode.com. And Pat will thank you. All right, let's talk about this. Last weekend, you guys were out and about and got some great video of that, which we will come up and we're going to tease that to the end of the show. Got, as you know, Buckeye in the Sky. These guys are out every weekend looking at guys in Ohio that have a chance to get an Ohio State offer or have been offered by Ohio State already. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go talk about where our guys are headed this weekend. Going to look at some video from what they saw last weekend, and then we'll go through all these questions as quickly as possible from the crew. So, Bill, where are you headed this weekend? And don't make jokes.
Well, I am headed to Springfield, Ohio. I'm going to see the Huber Heights Wayne and Springfield game.
Hey, Bill, you need to hold on a sec, Bill. You need to plug in your sound. It's not coming through as well as it needs to. Marcus, we're going to switch to you. Where are you headed this weekend?
Okay. I wanted to see Lexington as soon as I could this year, and that meant week 7. So it took me a little
Lexington?
while. Braden Fogel, we talked about him a lot in the preseason. That's why I was excited to see him. Tight end, defensive end. He has plenty of big-time offers, Georgia and whatnot. He had a heck of an Ohio State camp, which really juiced him up on our radar. So, yeah, I get to finally see him. And because Lexington is pretty close to Ashland, I'm going to sneak over and see Nathan Bernard, the quarterback at Ashland. I don't know if we're going to take a quarterback in this class. I know Chip Kelly's been in to see him. He is so big, so strong. And there's talking to some coaches that have seen him recently, the improvement has been night and day from last year with delivery and motion, stuff like that. So let's go get it on tape and see what it is. And, you know, like I think the word of the day has been offer candidate. You know, Alston's an offer candidate. Gebhardt's an offer candidate. I think Fogel and Bernard offer candidates. Fogel more so than Bernard. That's probably a 70-30 there. So,
Fogel, Mark, was a big-time basketball recruit as well.
Big time.
And my understanding that the uptick in his recruitment now is because he's decided he's going to play football full-time. A Georgia offer, anytime we get a Georgia offer or an LSU offer up here, I kind of think they're doing it to tease Ohio State or mess with them a little bit. You get that vibe?
That's called bait in the industry. And I do know some college coaches that practice in the art of baiting other schools. They will offer someone and it's not a committable offer. And there's no way to really know that. And sometimes that does happen. Is this the case here? I don't know. Okay. But I do know that is when you're sensing that, you know, and other people may, you know, so we'll see, you know, but I think Fogel is a top-tier recruit. He's going to end up being in the top 10 in the state. He'll end up being high ranked nationally. He may even be higher than I'm predicting. So I think we're, you know, someone definitely to watch. And that basketball background, boy, does it show up on the football field. You know, at tight end, he's got receiving skills and rebounding skills where he can high point and be a big-time threat. So I'm really excited to see where he's at this year.
There's definitely a trend of that type of guy choosing football. Fact is, it's just easier. Easier is a stretch. There are just more scholarships in football than there are in basketball. It's just harder to do. So we shall see. Bill, you want to take another shot at this?
Yeah.
There he is.
We going to the.
There he's not.
What's that?
Something's wrong with your sound. It's coming through a little bit garbled. Once you get going, it tends to pick up, but for some reason there's some kind of connection issue there. So let's just hold off on that and see if it kicks in. Mark, I'm going to bring up the video from this past weekend. We got to see some very interesting guys. Everyone looking at the screen here. Jake Cook from Westerville North. You all know him. Sincere Johnson, Mason and Wilhelm, PJ McFarland, and Jameson Kitna, kind of an interesting name, son of John Kitna. Is John Kitna still the head coach at Lakota East? Is that how that works?
He is. And Lakota East looks outstanding. I mean, they look like they have it all. Their offensive line was as big as any I've seen this year. And I don't want to spend too much talking about teams, but boy, I'm wondering where they're going to end up in the end of the playoffs here. They can make a run. I'll play this now. Bill went to see Jake Cook, and he plays left tackle right now, and you can see he's just a nasty football player. I mean, he finishes, and he has no problem pancaking guys on pass pro or run blocking.
Oh,
I mean, you can just see that may have been a wrestling takedown and more than a block, but who cares? Like the point you want to take away from that is this kid is trying to hunt. He is trying to hurt people. I love that he was disrespected with his star rating, and he's been on some sort of mission to prove everybody right. That has the mental approach of success. You know, once he steps on the field at Ohio State, all those rankings and ratings go away. And what's going to show up on tape is what we're seeing right now. This nasty, mean kid that, hey, I was, not as highly ranked as some of these other guys, and I want a piece of them. I mean, we always hear guys that like take a list and want to pass all the guys that were drafted ahead of them. Sincere Johnson looks outstanding. If you saw the burst of the ball on that play, and there's one other play here where he's going to go accelerating to the ball, you'll see that weight he took off and being a little lighter has definitely paid dividends. There it is. He just triggered, and he made a tackle for loss there that was lights out. And then the other player, we're going to stop that for all the premium users. They're going to have to watch the rest of it. There's former Ohio State son we're going to check out, former NFL son we're going to check out. So there's things there you want to see. Bill's doing a great job of getting us film of his guys. He's really zooming in. I know my film of Sincere was a little farther back. But if you were going to buy stock in Sincere Johnson, you should have bought it because he looks dynamic compared to where he was. If you remember the raw talent videos, he was covering guys one-on-one, and his style of coverage was mug. Like, just put my big paws on him and lay on him and kind of interfere with them. He's got some speed and agility now where he can turn and burn and run with these guys. I would say he might be the most improved guy from last year to this year that I've seen because he's probably 20 pounds different, lighter. Like, he was probably 240, 250. He might be 220 or under right now. So hats off to him for all that hard work. And it's showing up right away when he took off on from that spot at middle linebacker. I think we were cough, cough. He might be headed to defensive end. He's a middle linebacker right now, much like we did with Arvell Reese. Said, Arvell's going to get there and outgrow this middle linebacker. Guess who's playing middle linebacker? So similar story, I think, coming.
I like a little trend. We always get the Glenville pipeline flowing. Hasn't really been at middle linebacker, but hey, we'll start a new trend here anytime we can, which is great. All right, Bill, I'm going to let you have the floor here. Where are you headed this weekend?
Huber Heights at Springfield High School. Should be a really good one. Jameer Brown plays for Huber Heights Wayne, the number one player in Ohio for class of 2027. And for Springfield, they've got a very good team as always, although they're 4-2 this year right now. But their guys are younger, 2027, 2028 guys at Ohio State may end up being interested in or will likely be interested in. But so there's going to be 3-4 guys on that field that either have an Ohio State offer or could eventually get an Ohio State offer. So Huber Heights Wayne at Springfield on Friday night.
I'm looking for some questions here, Bill, but were you surprised Jameer Brown was the number one receiver in the class of 2027? I have to admit, kind of took me off guard.
Yeah, I was, I guess, a little surprised at that. But he is a really fast, talented athlete. And I haven't looked that far ahead for class of 2027 as far as who's the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in the country. But yeah, that did surprise me a little bit, I guess, but potential is there. And you're going to have the number 2 quarterback in the country for that class, Brady Edmonds, in Ohio Stadium on Saturday for the Iowa game, and the number 1 wide receiver in the class for 2027. So that's a good thing.
I am not shocked he was ranked number 1. I think he was more than justified. His track times, we went over him on this. Dan did a deep dive on his track times, how freakish they were. He went to his individual workout and dusted everybody. Like, it was men amongst boys. It was like, college coaches were walking away going, this is a freshman. I mean, I'm not shocked at all. I'd like to see someone better, and the reason I say that is he has the size. He's 6'2". The speed is evident. The ball skills are off the charts. When I saw him as a freshman week 1, he was returning kickoffs against St. Vincent St. Mary as his first game ever as a freshman. I'm not shocked.
That's good to know.
And he go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say all that math, game, combine, seeing him at Ohio State, the film. I mean, my math is all there. And I think it's a product of me just seeing him so much early on where I have a higher confidence. And maybe I'm ignorant to what's out there nationally. And, maybe Bill's shock of, I wasn't sure if he'd be number 1. He knows what a national net there is and how freaky you have to be number 1. But me rooting for the Ohio guy, I'm not shocked.
Yeah, and he is returning punts and kickoffs again this season. So he'll be playing wide receiver, returning punts and kickoffs, and I'm really anxious. I've seen him at camp, and he was tremendous at camp. And one question mark was, does he catch the ball consistently well enough? And he did at camp, and he showed that. And like Mark said, he's got tremendous speed and all the other things you look for. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him on Friday night. First time I will have seen him in an actual game.
Yeah, Wayne has a great tradition, too, in this state of producing elite talent. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's in the mix. And guys also, if you look at the Wayne guys, they do well in college and afterwards. They're prepared. I don't know what it is. Some programs just get you going. But the guys at Wayne tend to produce at the next level. All right, question time. William, I heard Riley Pettyjohn, the fantastic middle linebacker from Texas who was committed to Ohio State, is visiting Texas for the Georgia game. Any worries?
You never want your guys that are committed to visit other games or other schools. But having said that, my flip worry meter for him would not be high at this point. And I think he's really pretty sold on Ohio State at this point.
He's also really, really good and really, really young. If you remember when we did his commitment, I think he committed around his birthday, and he only turned 17. He hasn't played middle linebacker that long, and we talked about it. This guy is very high on Ohio State's board. He's one of my absolute favorites in the long term. If you told me Riley Pettyjohn was the best defensive player we got in this draft, good Lord, in this it's kind of a draft, in this recruiting class, I would not be surprised. Jermaine Runnell, speaking of receivers rated number 1 that I expect to end up at Ohio State, what's the status of Chris Henry Jr.? Is he on the danger of being flipped? Briefly, Chris Henry Jr., the son of the late, great Chris Henry from the Bengals, had some Ohio ties, played Ohio football early, moved out west to modern day. So everyone's fearful of USC and Oregon, but he has been seemingly devoted to Ohio State, Bill.
Yeah, similar, I guess, to Riley Pettyjohn. My flip worry meter is not particularly high at this point. I think as long as Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Brian Hartline are at Ohio State, I really love the odds that Chris Henry signs with Ohio State.
This was a good joke from earlier that I missed, but Troy V, that's a good one. Haven't we all? All right, next question. Bill, what is going on with Anthony Turbo Rogers? Anthony Rogers, the smaller, I would say, scat back, if that's a fair assessment, from who's committed to Alabama. Ironically, the one thing Ohio State really doesn't have in its offense is that guy in the slot who, Zion Branch type. Your thoughts, Bill, on Anthony Rogers, if the turbo will kick in Columbus eventually?
Timing on that question, because just this morning I got a text from someone very familiar with Turbo Rogers' recruitment. Kind of a little update or whatever you want to call it, just a source that I trust on him. And Turbo, we have talked about, is planning to make an official visit to Ohio State. It will not be this weekend. Confirmed this morning that he is not going to be at Ohio State this weekend for the Iowa game. He actually has his game tonight, as a matter of fact, Thursday night game, but he's not going to be at the Ohio State-Iowa game, but he is still planning to make an official visit to Ohio State. It just won't be this weekend. I still think Ohio State has a very reasonable chance to flip him from Alabama. I'm not putting a crystal ball in right now that that's going to happen. I'm just saying I think it's still a very reasonable chance that he could flip to Ohio State. Remember, Carlos Loughlin, the running backs coach for the Buckeyes, has been recruiting Turbo Rogers since Turbo was in 8th grade. Carlos Loughlin is from Montgomery, Alabama, which is where Turbo Rogers is. So they've known each other and had a great relationship for a long time. And Carlos Loughlin is doing a great job of recruiting him, as he's just doing a great job of recruiting running backs, period.
Greg Johnson, with one of the most successful high school programs in Ohio, why do you not mention Wyoming high school kids? When we do recruiting on here, we're talking about guys who have a shot to play at Ohio State. I don't know if Wyoming has guys like that currently. I know that we played them in basketball last year, and they beat us like we stole something. But that's a slight digression. Then I had the last question here I want to get to, Bill. It is this. From Bruce Beals. Braylon Womack out of Mississippi, a safety, supposedly has the Buckeyes in the lead. Georgia athlete Tyreek Green has Ohio State in the mix. Bill, let's finish the show with your thoughts on Braylon Womack and Tyreek Green.
I love Womack. He is a tremendous prospect. I would say that, I don't know that I would say that Ohio State is a clear-cut leader. I think they're absolutely one of his top choices. Could be the leader right now, and he's a guy that would be a great addition to the Buckeyes program. He's a difference maker type guy. And I don't remember the other. Oh, Tyreek Green.
Tyreek Green from Georgia.
Yeah, he was the other mentioned. He's another guy that's Ohio State obviously has offered him outstanding player too. If of the two, I would say that Braylon is the guy Ohio State is in the better shape with right now.
All right, people. Big game this weekend. Ohio State will step closer into the national spotlight. Good Lord, it feels like they've been under the radar despite how well they've played. For those complaining about the defense, I looked this up last night. Ohio State, I think, is second in the nation in yards per play allowed. I think they're number 1 in points allowed in defense. Let's not be complaining when we're number 1 in the nation in points allowed and second in yards per play allowed. I think we're in really good shape there. So let's hope they can show it against Iowa. Like these guys told you, they'll be on the road this weekend, getting some very interesting content, some great players on display. Plus, we've got a really nice guest list, okay, for the Iowa game. And no one follows that better than the dean himself. So make sure you have it locked in here all weekend. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Have a good one. Bucknutters.